So I may have been just a little premature when I titled last week's H2P podcast, "This is a different Pitt football team." Because did I play myself with that one. Now, of course, this is the H2P podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. You can listen to this show like every other DKPittsburghSports.com podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are hosted. Check out all our work that we do all day, every day, throughout the week, covering all Pittsburgh sports right here for free. But man, Pitt fans, this is a rough one. And this is the one we were all talking about. It's funny. I was talking to Doran Dickerson after the final word last week. And he said to my face, they better not sleep on Western Michigan because they're going to catch them if they do. But see, here's the crazy thing. I don't think Pitt, quote unquote, slept on Western Michigan. I think they just flat out got beat. And that's the problem here. Now, if you read my article, which breaks everything down, I talk about Kenny Pickett having a career day. He went 23 of 31, 382 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did lose, I believe, 1 fumble, 2 fumbles. But point being, the man put up 6 touchdowns to the air while also leading the team with 10 rushes for 49 yards. What else more do you need from your quarterback, your fifth-year quarterback who came back another year when he could have gone to the NFL? Now, granted, I don't think he would have gotten picked as high as he wanted to in the NFL, so this is also a mutually beneficial thing. I don't think this was I'm just going to save Pitt. It was I need to clean some things up type of thing. The way that I think a lot of Pitt fans wanted Justin Champagnie to stick around for Pitt for one more year so he can get a higher standing in the NBA draft. But man, there ain't no hiding in this one. And I'm one, you know me if you listen to me. I give Coachins a lot of room. I have never called for Pat Narduzzi's job. I still won't at this very moment. But I ain't going to argue with you if you call for it after this one. I will say this. This is, because here's the thing. If Pitt rebounds from this, it's a different story. They beat New Hampshire. Let's say they start ACC play and they turn things around and they are 5-1 going into Clemson. That would change a lot right here. That would just make this, man, that's a bad loss, but hey, they rebounded. But in the right here and now, we got some very obvious problems. And it's that Pat is against change. And I'm not talking changing coaches, although some people may argue that about Mark Whipple. Though, again, Mark Whipple's I'll get to Mark Whipple in a minute. Because if you read my article, you know how I feel about things with Pitt's offense, even though they did put up 41 points. By the way, 3 straight games with 40 or more points never has happened in Pitt football history. Now, back to Pat. Pat is unchanging in his ways. He's going to come at you with the same way and beat you over the head with it. Even if you block the first 5 shots, he's going to keep hitting you with the same punches until eventually your hands drop and he wins the fight. The problem is, if you do that for 7 years, which he's now in his 7th year, you become a lot more predictable to beat. And boy, did head coach of Western Michigan University football team Tim Lester illuminate that. Because he said after the game, talking about Pat Narduzzi. Now, for those who don't know, Tim Lester was the offensive coordinator for Syracuse back in 2015. Pitt beat them 23-20 that game. But Tim Lester said after the game that he watched that tape 300 times. Quote, "I've watched that game 300 times this week. I knew where they were going to come from and how they were going to fit and what our matchups are going to be and what variety of matchups we are going to need to keep the safety off balance." And man, did they keep Pitt safeties off balance, because as I wrote in my article with my lead, Eric Hallett got knocked out by Brandon Hill, who was coming over to help far too late on a deep ball. And Eric Hallett he allowed the reception, but he at least had his man wrapped up. He was going to bring him down. It was going to be like, all right, good pass, but, we'll get you next time. No, Brandon Hill comes over, knocks him out the game. Eric Hallett never returned. That was my this defines the game moment. And the problem is nothing's going to change in this defense. They're still going to try to bring the same blitzes. They're still going to try and live with cornerbacks that are in single coverage and asking them to do way more than they're capable of and not adjusting to their skill sets. And instead of adjusting to their skill sets, you're going to keep rotating guys until someone figures out how to do it best out there. But this is what happens when someone tees off on you, sees your scheme, and is like, I'm going to exploit that. And you know what? Here's the thing. I'm pretty sure coaches have done it. They just didn't drop a microphone as hard as Tim Lester did after the game. And I wrote this in my post-game article. If Pat Narduzzi can't make changes under him to stop this kind of stuff from happening, there need to be changes that happen over him. Or I guess with him, is my point. Not necessarily how they're like. I think it's too early for that too. But point being, this was an unacceptable loss for Pitt. If we were dealing with COVID like last year, still unacceptable, but more of a saving grace there because, Jalen Twyman opted out. You didn't expect that until the very beginning of the season, blah, blah, blah. If this was his first or second year coaching, well, he's trying to establish the program. He's pulling him up. He's trying to pull him up out of mediocrity. He has to set the tone, blah, blah, blah. All those are gone. You've been in the program for 7 years. You had a quarterback that's been in your program for 5 years. He played a phenomenal game, even though he got hurt. You were playing an inferior opponent, and they were an inferior opponent. I will not hear anything else. Though I will say Caleb Ellaby, heck of a game from him. He did play very well, and Pat Narduzzi said, watch out for that guy, and apparently they watched out for him, and it didn't matter. And listen, I'm not one to just bash. I'm not here to just bash and say and point fingers and say, you stink, you stink, you stink. I don't like doing that. I'm a football guy. I love to break down X's and O's. I love to look at things. But man, the more I feel like diving into the minutia, because I've dived into some of the minutia on my own, or dove into, learn English, Carter. Dove into the minutia. And the more I look at it, it's just like, inconsistency here, inconsistency there, and just problem here, problem. And it's just wildfires that keep sparking up. And to me, it's just like this needs to stop. If there's just a place that you don't got the guy, different story. But I think they got the guys to compete. They just need to mix up how they're using them. I want to really talk about this offense because as much as they scored, I still got a problem with him. I still got problems with him. Mark Whipple, why? I'm sure that's what so many Pitt fans have said for so long. I'll address that in the second segment right here on the H2P podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stay right with me. Back here on the H2P podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, continuing the show here on DKPittsburghSports.com, where you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere podcasts are hosted. Rate us 5 stars on Apple with a positive comment. It really helps out, not just our show, but everyone on the DKPittsburghSports.com podcast. Now back to my roasting. Just kidding. I'm not here to roast by him. I'm here to be objective and explain what happened here. But I want to read. I want to read you this thing that I wrote because I really meant it when I wrote it in this post game article, talking about Pitt's run game or the lack of a run game. And this is why I want you to go read it so you can see the whole thing. I'm just going to read you this paragraph. Quote: Pitt's run game is still a non-existent mystery, shrouded in Whipple's futile machinations. Whipple's offense has simply been based on Pickett playing the role of Superman, while Pitt's receivers and tight ends being his supporting cast of a Justice League. And the run game being the citizens they save from certain disaster. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't see the genius pass play dial-ups. You know, when Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator and Nathan Peterman was chucking the ball over the place, you could tell, man, they caught them off guard here, they caught them off guard here. Man, the defense had no way to saw. They were outplaying teams that had more skill on the other side. That Clemson game, they had no business being in a part of it, but because Matt Canada was able to get things going, and Nathan Peterman and James Conner, they were lighting it up. And teams couldn't tell where they were coming from. And I know they lost this game, but this is 3 straight games with 40 or more points for Pitt's offense, and that deserves credit to Kenny Pickett for doing that. But when you face a team that's going to have some DBs and they can make life harder for you, this ain't going to work. Because you don't have a run game. And there's no signs that you're going to have a run game. It'd be different if your running back was hurt or if your key lineman was hurt or if something was going along those lines. But every week it's something else. And I asked Pat Narduzzi about his run game and why isn't it consistent yet on last Monday? And he told me, well, I think being able to get the ball with 5 minutes left of the game and running the clock out, I think that is consistency. And I'm like, hey, you know what? For that last drive it was. But for the rest of the game against Tennessee, it was not. And it's been that case week 1, week 2, week 3. Even against UMass. I almost called him Austin Peay because that's basically the same thing with what they meant to this team. Even against UMass. The run game didn't really take over until the second half. When the offensive line was like, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. And to the credit, they did make some adjustments there and they made that thing happen. And they were up against some serious SEC dudes last week. But this was the week you needed to straighten it out. This was my kickoff article. I said this is the week. You got to establish the run right here, right now. Because on top of you scoring all those points, you scored them so fast. You're putting your defense back out there. And while it's great that you're putting up points with Kenny Pickett, that defense, and Servase Dennis, I asked him this after the game. He said, no, we weren't gassed. But don't lie. Yeah, Servase, you ain't going to say that you're gassed. I get it. But come on, man. They're lighting you up left and right. And you're putting them right back out there because and again, you go no huddle, up tempo. Give me something else, man. I mean, geez. And the thing is that when I look at this Pitt team, the reason I will not call for Pat Narduzzi's head. That's not how I operate because, again, this season can be turned around. I've seen crazier things happen. But if this is another 12 games, 6-6, 7-5 season, yeah, it might be that time. Because this is the year with 27 seniors, with your 7th year coaching the program. Everybody gets the message. There's no more, I need to make sure that everyone knows what we're about. All that's gone. The road for those buying more time, excuses and sayings and reasons, because some of them were legit reasons. COVID-19. They lost Jalen Twyman before the season started, and he was supposed to be their best defender. And I do think if you put Jalen Twyman in those BC and NC State games, they win those games, and then that's a 9-win season last year. And everyone's looking at this Pitt team a lot differently. And I give Pat Narduzzi that credit, and I said it back then, and I still say it now. I give him that, but not this year. You got Kenny Pickett. You got all these seniors. You got leadership across the board. You got to make it happen. And I even said, you heard me last week, and I even said, this is why I started off the show by saying maybe I was too premature. But last week, I felt like, hey, this is different. Yes, the other team scored a good amount of points, but it's an SEC team. They got a lot of athletes. You haven't played an SEC team in like 8 years. I'm willing to give you some space there, but not with this. Now, they have to play New Hampshire next week. They're 3-0, and not another non-Power 5 conference team and a team that they're going to have to take seriously. And if I'm another team, I just watch that. I say, hey, we're going to run the RPO this week and see how we do. And see if we light this Pitt offense up, or Pitt defense up. And we will just make it so that Kenny Pickett might have to turn the ball over a few times if he wants to throw it deep on us. Also, Jordan Addison, Lucas Krull, phenomenal games. Jared Wayne, phenomenal game. And again, I'm not too mad at Vincent Davis as a running back. I actually think he's a hard runner. I do think Israel Abanikanda someone needs to be given a shot to actually run the doggone ball. Run it with power. Run something. Do something. I don't know. Somebody needs a shot. But nobody's averaging more than 40 yards per game on the ground. And the leading rusher on the team is Kenny Pickett. If you're an old Looney Tunes fan, you remember Baseball Bugs, the best Bugs Bunny cartoon of all time. It was like when they announced names: first base, Bugs Bunny; second base, Bugs Bunny; shortstop, Bugs Bunny; catcher, Bugs Bunny; left field, Bugs Bunny. That's how I feel about Kenny Pickett. He's doing everything. He might catch a touchdown next week. Heck, he caught a touchdown 2 years ago against UCF. He's literally ran and caught and thrown touchdowns. That guy's phenomenal. Also, in a game where he passed Dan Marino, if the defense is just a little bit better in this game, even if they were still bad, but just a little bit better and they win this game, I would have still pulled out of this. You know what? Things didn't go right for you. You had some disasters, but you still found a way to win, and on a career day for Kenny Pickett. Because not only did he throw for 6 touchdowns, which was double his career high, not only did he pass Dan Marino and Tino Sinceri to be the second all-time leading passer in program history, but he did it in a day where he, one, was knocked out of the game, looked like he was in serious pain, and you know if Kenny shows on his face, if he's kicking the field the way he was when he took that hit, you know that hurt. You know he was in some serious pain. When they took him to the locker room, I was like, oh, this is bad. Granted, Nick Patty didn't look bad when he was out there, though. But point being, when he came back out that very next drive, I was like, man, you keep saying he's a warrior. And then he took the knee to the head on the roughing call that was picked up, and it was a legitimate pickup of a flag. I don't care what anybody says. That kid was trying to dive over Kenny as he slid. Kenny popped up really quickly, and the kid's knee hit his head. It was just very unfortunate. It sucks for Kenny, but that was football. But that was the signature game for Kenny Pickett, and it's a loss. There's no more excuses. And here's the thing. Pat doesn't need to make excuses. He needs to go back in. Look, guys, we got the next game plan. Boom, 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 boom. And, if that means, hey, we're changing up some philosophy things on defense. We're going to do some things different next week. Randy Bates, go do this. Change it up. Do whatever you got to do. Make that happen. Because it's desperation time at Pitt. And not desperation time where I'm saying just bench all your starters or whatever. But I'm saying something got to change on defense because this ain't going to work this year with the crew that you got. And if something don't change, and this is another mediocre year, and I know some of you are like, well, it's already a mediocre year. I'm saying if it ends up that way, well then, serious question time at the end of the year. I was against that last year, especially with the turnaround they had. But they need that kind of a turnaround right now in this season. Not just a win over New Hampshire, a dominant win where there's some progress, where the defense is not getting torched by random plays, and the run game is bowling some people over or making something work to that effect. Because if you play like this for the rest of the season, the ACC is going to cook you in a year where the ACC is cooked. And that ain't going to look good. I hope that you Pitt fans appreciated I'm Chris Carter. Follow us here. We'll be back in your ear soon.
Ladies and gentlemen.